Welcome. We believe that listening is the most natural way to learn a foreign language. On this channel, we publish conversations between two people each time on different topic, so that you can improve your English without boring grammar. In order for the brain to absorb the language as much as possible, and to automatically think and speak in English, it is recommended to listen to each episode several times over a few days. We would be grateful if you would subscribe to the channel and like. Enjoy.
All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're going microscopic and tackling something that's, well, kind of freaky when you really think about it. Microplastics.
Yeah, those tiny plastic particles, less than 5 millimeters in diameter, right?
Exactly. They're everywhere, and frankly, they're causing quite a stir. I mean, everyone knows about those big plastic bottles and bags, but these microplastics are a whole other story.
It really is a different beast, isn't it? Out of sight, out of mind, as they say. But the problem is, just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're not there.
So true.
Yeah.
And plastic takes forever to break down, so are these microplastics just going to hang out in the environment, like, forever, causing problems?
That's a big part of the issue, their longevity. But to understand the problem, you got to know where they're coming from. There are two main sources, actually. Secondary microplastics, those are the bits that break off from bigger plastic stuff over time.
Gotcha. So like a plastic bottle starts to crumble, and you get microplastics.
Right. And then there are primary microplastics. Those are tiny on purpose, like manufactured that way.
Wait, what? Tiny plastic bits made on purpose. Why?
Think back to those face scrubs with the microbeads. Or toothpastes. Those were often plastic.
Oh, right. I haven't seen those in a while, though.
You're right. A lot of countries have banned microbeads in cosmetics, but they're still out there in other products, and that's just one example.
Okay, so we've got microbeads and we've got bigger plastic breaking down. What else is adding to this plastic soup?
Well, your clothes, for one.
My clothes? What do you mean?
Yeah, when you wash synthetic fabrics. Polyester, nylon, that kind of thing. Tiny microfibers come off the material every time you wash them.
Seriously. How tiny are we talking?
Millions of microfibers from a single load of laundry.
Millions. No way. And those end up in the water, too.
They do, right through those filters.
So even if I'm, like, super careful about recycling, my clothes are still messing things up.
It's a tricky issue, for sure. Shows how microplastics are kind of woven into our lives, you know? This is not just clothes either.
What else then?
Tire wear. As your tires rub on the road, they shed particles.
Wow. Okay, starting to feel like microplastics are just, like, unavoidable. So let's talk impact. What's the big deal with these little bits of plastic floating around? Are they really that harmful?
Yeah, this is where it gets concerning. For ecosystems all over, especially our oceans.
Right. Everyone's seen those pictures of turtles tangled in plastic.
It's more than just that, though. Marine animals, all kinds, they mistake these tiny particles for food.
So they're eating them.
They are. And that causes all sorts of problems. Digestive issues, starvation, even worse.
Worse. Like what?
Think of microplastics like little sponges, soaking up all the bad stuff in the water, pollutants, pesticides, industrial chemicals, you name it.
So it's not just the plastic itself, it's all the toxins they're carrying around, too.
Exactly. And when smaller creatures eat them, well, those toxins just travel up the food chain.
It could end up on our plates, too. Not a pleasant thought. Okay, so we've got the oceans, but what about, like, rivers and lakes? Is the same thing happening there?
Absolutely. We're finding microplastics in rivers, lakes, even groundwater.
And we need that water to drink, for crops, everything.
Right. It's pretty sobering. And then you got to wonder, if they're in the water, are they in our soil too?
Good point. That's kind of scary.
We need more research on that for sure. But early studies show microplastics can change soil structure, how fertile it is, that affects plants, the whole balance of things.
So we've got these tiny invaders in the water, the soil, maybe even the air. What does that mean for, us, our health?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We know we're ingesting them through food and water, probably inhaling them too. But the full picture, we're still figuring that out. Before we go any further, I just want to say, we're still in the early stages of understanding all of this. Microplastics, I mean.
Yeah, it's easy to get freaked out. But what are we talking about specifically when it comes to, like, health risks?
Well, some studies are showing they can cause inflammation in the gut.
Inflammation, isn't that, like, linked to all sorts of things?
It is. Chronic inflammation can be a factor in so many health problems. Autoimmune diseases, even some cancers.
Okay, that's not good. And then there's those toxins, right? that their microplastics are carrying.
Right. Those could leach into our bodies too, adding another layer of risk.
This is heavy stuff. So what can we even do about it? Feels kind of hopeless, like it's too big of a problem.
Yeah, it's complex, needs action on a bunch of different levels. But the good news is we're not powerless. Even small changes can make a difference.
Okay, give me some hope here. What can I do, like, in my daily life?
Let's start with the basics. Reduce your plastic use overall. Think about all that single-use plastic you see every day.
You mean like water bottles?
Yeah,
And those plastic containers for takeout?
exactly. Can you swap a plastic water bottle for a reusable one? Bring your own coffee cup to the cafe?
Yeah, I can do that. But what about food packaging? It's like everything comes wrapped in plastic.
True. It's tough to avoid it completely, but you can be a more conscious consumer. Choose products with less packaging. Maybe buy loose produce instead of the prepackaged stuff.
Right. And if I see a company that's like doing good with packaging, I should support them.
Exactly. That sends a message. Okay, but what about the plastic we already have? You're good about recycling,
I
right?
try to be. But is it even enough? With all this microplastic
The
stuff?
recycling's important, no doubt,
Yeah.
but it's not a perfect solution. Not all plastic is easy to recycle, and even the stuff that is, well, it can release microplastics during the process.
Oh, man. I thought I was doing good with my recycling bin. What am I doing wrong?
First of all, make sure you're recycling right. Sounds simple, but people mess it up all the time. Rinse your containers, check the rules for your area.
And no wish cycling, right?
Yeah, no wish cycling. We're all guilty of that sometimes. But there's another thing, too. Bio-based plastics.
Oh, yeah, those compostable containers. Are those actually legit?
They have a lot of potential. Imagine plastic that can biodegrade, even compost. That would be huge for landfills, the environment. But there are still challenges. Not all bio-based plastics are the same, you know? We got to make sure they're breaking down properly.
Gotcha. So we need both, right? People making better choices and, like, new technologies and stuff.
Yep. And don't forget about advocacy. Support sustainable companies. And let your elected officials know that this stuff matters. We need policies that address plastic pollution.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But what about those microfibers from my clothes? Is there anything I can do about that besides, like, never wear clothes again?
Haha, no need to go naked. But you can try washing your clothes less often. And when you do, use a front-loading washing machine. They tend to produce fewer microfibers than top-loading ones.
Really? I had no idea. What else? Any other laundry hacks?
There are these special laundry bags. They're designed to trap microfibers. Or you can get a filter for your washing machine hose. Catches the fibers before they go down the drain.
Okay, those are good tips. I can do that. But what about the microplastics that are already out there? In the environment, I mean. Can we even clean that up?
That's a tough one. Scientists are looking at a bunch of different things, like using microorganisms that can break down plastic. It's called bioremediation. And there's research into fancy filtration systems to get microplastics out of the water.
So there's hope. But it's going to take a while, huh?
Yeah, it's a long road. It's going to take a lot of teamwork, new ideas, and honestly, we got to change how we think about plastic.
Back again for the deep dive. We've been knee-deep in the world of microplastics this whole episode. Kind of a crazy journey, really. We started with where these tiny particles come from, then how they're affecting the environment, and then, well, how they could be affecting us too.
Yeah, it's been quite the deep dive. And as we've talked about, this isn't a problem with a simple solution. We've got to think about everything. How much plastic we're making and using, how we deal with waste, and coming up with better alternatives.
Thinking about everything we've talked about, it's hard not to wonder what's going to happen in the long run. With all these microplastics building up, it's like we're doing this giant experiment on the planet, and we don't even know what's going to happen.
That's a great way to put it. It really is like an experiment, and we don't have all the answers yet. What happens when microplastics are hanging around for decades? Hundreds of years, even. How is that going to affect ecosystems? And our health? Those are the big questions, the ones that scientists and policymakers are trying to figure out right now.
It's a little scary, honestly. But hopefully, by talking about it, getting it out in the open, maybe we can inspire people to do something.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right? The more we understand about this problem, the better choices we can make. It's not about feeling hopeless. It's about realizing that even small changes can add up, especially when we all work together.
So at the end of the day, what's the one thing you want people to remember from this episode?
Every choice you make matters. Every little thing. Choose reusable instead of single-use. Look for companies that are doing things the right way, and tell your elected officials that this matters to you. We can all do our part to create a healthier planet for ourselves and for everyone who comes after us. And don't forget, spread the word. Tell your friends and family about what you've learned today. The more people who know about this, the better. We can do this together.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into the world of microplastics. It's been a fascinating and, yeah, a little bit unsettling journey.
Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, thanks for being here. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep making those choices that matter. See you next time on The Deep Dive.